cake.
Yes. Welcome to the 9th episode of Season 5 of the Ubuntu UK podcast. It's Tuesday, the 19th of June 2012, and in this episode we're going to interview Jason DeRose from the NovaCut project and discuss the Raspberry Pi and other educational tools. We will, of course, cover the latest news, events, bit about Ubuntu, tomorrow's technology today, and go over your feedback. If you're listening live, hello there.
Hello.
You can send us a message using the chat facility on the website and the IRC channel. I'm Alan, and with me this week are Tony.
Hello, Alan.
Laura.
Hello, Alan.
Mark.
Hello. Always got to be different,
Hasn't he? Yeah, with his hair. And
Yeah.
so, Laura, what have you been up to this week?
I went to Paris.
And what did
Very
you do
nice.
in Paris?
Went to some customer meetings, all in French.
Wow. How good's your
Yeah.
French?
Not quite good enough. I understood the questions, the answers. Who'd have thought people wouldn't answer yes or no at the start of their answers? It would have made life so much easier to know what they were then going on to say.
Do they not nod and shake their head in France either?
Well,
I know they shrug a lot.
that didn't help. No, it went all right. Yes, it was good.
I had an occasion like that in Germany a few years ago. I went on a course and everyone walked in and I walked in and the lecturer was speaking in German, and then as soon as I walked in, he started speaking in English. And he was like, I suppose we'll have to do the course in English now.
Don't you feel really bad about it then?
No. No, not really. Cool. Tony, what have you been up to?
I went to see the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy radio show live.
Yes, you did.
Yes, I did. It was great fun.
Am I
was.
the only one of us who didn't go and see it?
Yes.
Oh.
And we went along with a bunch of geeks and people who are married to geeks. Amy Ferguson was there
Yay!
for her obligatory
you did
mention.
there,
Yeah, it was really good fun.
Did you find it, are you a Hitchhiker's fan or just, you're aware of it?
Yeah, no, I've listened to it for years. I went after the show. I went and converted all my CDs that I got from the radio series into MP3 so I can listen to them again on my iPod. Yeah, so I'm a big fan. It was a really good show. It was great to see kind of the actual cast, the original radio
I was
cast.
most impressed.
Yeah, it was really good.
It was really entertaining. Yeah, if it's passing you, then I'd recommend going to see it. It's really worth seeing.
It's good.
Mark, what have you been up to? Not going to see Hitchhiker's Guide?
No,
clearly.
I've been buying a washing machine instead.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
Does it run Linux?
I don't know. It arrives tomorrow.
You can take it apart then.
No, I think I'll just use it. I've been without one for a while.
Yeah.
It's weird because in the notes it says
right.
Humble Bundle.
Well, yeah.
How did that turn into a washing machine?
I've been doing that as well. I've been playing the Humble Bundle because I've never really actually...
In your dirty socks. Well, that sounds good.
Absolutely.
He had to resort to his old dog camp t-shirts.
Yeah. Oh dear, I'm not going to dig myself out of this one, am I?
Nope.
So yeah, I've been playing some games on Linux because they're quite good.
And have you been running them? What? The Linux versions of the games.
Yes.
Oh, cool.
All proper ones.
Yeah.
Yes. Proper.
Yeah,
Except
the
for-
Humble Bundle. There's
Oh, yeah,
Linux
of course.
versions of everything. Yeah.
Sort of.
Well, other than that one that runs under wine.
And that
And
other
that
one,
Flash
which is
one.
actually Flash. Yeah.
Apart from that.
Yeah, they're all
apart from
native
that,
to
all
Linux,
native
apart
Linux.
from those. Yes.
Come on then, Alan. What have you been doing?
I have been visiting venues for Surrey and Hampshire Hackspace to try to evaluate a venue for them to build a Hackspace.
Oh, cool. What sort of places?
Well, one was a bit of a dive, but it was very, very cheap.
Cheap?
It was like an old industrial estate workshop thing.
Okay.
Plenty of parking, plenty of space. Looked like it was freezing cold, stone floor and all that kind of stuff, but it was nice.
Get some computers
nice.
in there, it will soon heat up.
Yes. And the other one was on a kind of industrial estate just around the corner from where I grew up, and I never even realised it was there, and just went in on the off chance, and so I've put those forward to the group, and they're going to evaluate them all and see if they can find somewhere that fits their price bracket.
Oh, I see. So you were scouting locations, and you recommended them in.
Yeah,
the
they've
group.
got a wiki, and they're tracking all of the venues on this wiki with photos and all the pricing and what you get included and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's really, in fact, they're having, annoyingly, the Surrey Enhanced Hackspace have their meeting every 2 weeks on a Tuesday at this time.
8:30.
Yes, at this time. So I never get to go to them.
Presumably they all sit there and listen to the show.
Well, of course. Hello, guys.
Excellent. Right.
Right, let's get on with it.
So, Raspberry Pi.
It seems like only yesterday we were talking about this.
And the day before, and the weeks before, and the months before that as well.
Yeah.
And apparently I was unnecessarily negative.
Were you?
Really?
So
Did we have feedback about that?
Yeah, that there was some conspiracy.
Oh. It was one of our hot topics, wasn't it?
It was.
Oh,
We had
yes,
a
it was.
hot topic about whether it was going to be the
I seem to
saviour.
remember I lost.
Oh, hot topic. Yeah, that was a segment that didn't last long, didn't it?
It took a lot of preparation.
Yeah, too much like hard work. You see, I
It
think
was.
I still want to do it. I think it was good.
Okay.
You could prepare both
Feel
sides
free.
and we'll read them.
Yeah, we'll sit here and listen to you argue with yourself.
I write it and you just read it.
Anyway, the Raspberry Pi.
It was our king of tickets, that segment.
It was, wasn't it?
Yes, so since we did that segment, the Raspberry Pi has actually come out and people have actually got them in their actual hands.
Some people have, yes.
Yes.
Some people have 3.
Yeah.
More than they have hands.
Yes.
One for each hand and one for their head.
So
yeah.
in my defence, I bought one from Farnell, one from RS, and then someone offered me a voucher to get another one from RS. And the idea was that I'd share them out. So one of them's going to go to my kids' school.
Very good.
Because they want one and they didn't get their act together and order one. So yeah, there is a reason why I ordered multiple. So
Yes.
yeah, they're quite cool. And Mark, you've had a play with them, haven't you?
I have. I had a bit of fiddle around, plugged it into my telly, and I tried a couple of different images. So basically, it comes without any storage on it. You just have an SD card slot, so you can put an image onto the SD card, stick it in, and power it up, and it boots. So I tried the Debian Squeeze image, which comes with LXDE and Python and not a lot else, a web browser installed.
Okay. Did it run okay?
Yeah, I mean, basically, it just feels like a Linux desktop.
A very slow Linux
It's
desktop.
just, you can't do much with it at once, and the graphics are a bit slow. So when you move windows around, you get that thing where it sort of has like a trail
like
behind
the end
it.
of a game of solitaire on Windows.
Yes, I was going to say like a cartoon character running very fast, but that'll do as well.
I know that effect, and I haven't seen that effect for years, ever
Yeah.
since I had computers that were that slow.
Yes, it's one of those.
So is that a problem?
Not for not for if you want to do something like program in Python,
Right.
because you're, typing in a document or at the command line.
Apart from when you want to run what you've written.
Well, it
Depends what your program
you want to run.
does.
Yeah, okay.
If you're going to use the little header to control LEDs or read sensors or control a motor or something like that, then no.
Yeah,
Not
that's a thing worth mentioning, as well as the all the connectors which you see on the diagram where it's got an Ethernet jack and 2 USB ports. It's actually got some GPIO connectors like an Arduino does. So if you want to do some basic sort of hardware programming, like flashing LEDs and stuff like that, then it's got a facility for you to connect other bits and bobs to it, which is quite a cool little addition.
It's very different in concept from the Arduino, which has got all the interfaces and things that you want to hook in, relays and all that sort of stuff, but is a very cut down board that you can't interact with graphically or anything. You have to use the development environment and send your code to it, and then it will run.
Yes.
Is it better to have a potentially a full desktop environment on it?
Well, you don't necessarily have to use it. I mean, you could equally install a Linux distro. In fact, the Debian Squeeze image by default doesn't actually start a GUI.
Oh yeah, you have to log in and type start
X.
Yeah.
I remember those days as well.
Yeah, it drops you to like a terminal, which is fine once you know that you type start X and you're in if you want the GUI. But as Mark said, actually it's leaner. If you run screen or Biobu or something like that, and have one window that's got your program on it and another window that's got the output from running your program or compiling or whatever. But you could quite easily install a Linux distro and not connect a keyboard and mouse to it and SSH into it.
Yeah.
And so arguably that makes it very similar to the Arduino because it's just a thing on the end of a cable and you send instructions to it via, in this case, via SSH rather than having a Java GUI that sends programs to it.
Isn't it more like a computer than an Arduino?
Is, exactly. Yes, it is. So it has, arguably, it's more flexible.
Yeah. Well, it's got a microprocessor rather than a microcontroller.
Yeah, and you've got the, for example, on Debian, you've got a raft of software that you could potentially run on it. Not just like the graphical stuff, but I think people need to get past the whole. There's a Linux desktop there because whilst there is, that's not the cool part. The cool part is that it has all these other connectors and that it's super cheap. Mm-hmm.
It seems like it's going to appeal to home automation people. We were at the Hitchhikers thing again. Another geek that we met there was telling us how he put MQTT on there to do home automation, and it wasn't either Andy Piper or Andy Stanford Clark.
Wow, there's another one.
Yeah, so I was quite impressed by that.
And he's not an Andy either.
He definitely wasn't an Andy.
He has been an IBMer though, I think.
Yeah.
So and I can see how someone like Andy Piper, who uses an old Viglin MPCL from the past.
Back from season 1.
Yeah, exactly. Episode 11. Still our highest downloaded episode ever. This could easily replace one of those. It's lower power, but arguably more flexible.
And probably a bit more oomph even than the MPCL.
Possibly, yeah.
It's not hard to get more oomph than an MPCL.
Yeah. They're still lovely devices. So, the ones that we got have got no case on them. Mm-hmm. And there was recently a video posted on the BBC where Dr. Sue Black and Pete Wood from RS took a bunch of these to a school, and the video is very short, so you don't get to see how long they spent debugging and how long they spent telling them this is an HDMI port, this is but it seemed to be in the clips they showed the kids were programming in Python, and they seem to be making it do stuff. Do you think it's the kind of thing that we could put in front of kids and get them writing Python for us?
Well, one would hope so. One would hope that there will be the support and the understanding in the teaching staff to be able to educate students how to use the tools effectively.
And it still comes back to my main argument in Hot Topic that unless you've got the people there and the materials to help them, I mean, the OLPC was about teaching among general computer skills, teaching Python. And you could do that on a lot of things.
You could, but then if you go back to when we were kids, when I was a kid, all those years ago, the BBC computer, that was a computer that lots of schools had, and opened the door to a lot of people. It was one of the things that got me interested in computers, was having a BBC Micro at school.
Yeah.
And I learned assembly language programming on a BBC Micro.
See, I had a BBC Micro and I didn't.
Right.
What did you do with it?
I did copy games in from a book, but I had no idea what I was doing. I just wanted the game, and I was most disappointed by the results. My dad used to be a programmer, so he'd debug it for me, but he didn't have the patience to debug it with me. And then he'd get bored.
I mean, there are other similar kind of boards and systems, things like the BeagleBone, Makey, which could potentially be used for the same.
Well, the Makey's a kind of input device, really.
That's quite cool.
Yeah, it's not so much it has no like intelligent guts in it. It's really just an input device.
But you can do things with like bananas and plasticine.
Yes, you can. but the things that are more comparable to the Raspberry Pi would be, like you say, the Arduino, the BeagleBone as well. And it's interesting that you look at each of these. Each chip vendor has an affiliation with one of these boards. So the Raspberry Pi is the Broadcom one.
Right.
There's an OMAP one. There's a TI one. So each of the vendors of these chips have a separate board, and they're all different. They're similar in that some of them have headers and some of them have HDMI. Some of them have these like an Arduino, a shield that goes on the top, so you can stack more I/O on the top, or a display adapter, or some other prototyping board or something like that.
You're like an investigative reporter, aren't you?
Am I?
Yeah,
No, he
spotting
just
that.
buys them all.
Yeah.
I do have a box with them all in. Yes. Well, no, I see.
Yeah.
This is what got me interested. I bought the Raspberry Pi. In fact, what got me interested was the Nanode first. Seeing Ken at OggCamp, bought the Nanode, did a bit of soldering, and my kids were interested in it. And I thought, okay, let's keep this momentum going and see what else I can do with it. And we, flick lights on and off and all that kind of stuff. And now we've got the Raspberry Pi. I'm thinking we could do more, more deeper stuff. Like it has not just Python, but it also has Scratch.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
On the Debian, the Debian image.
So what's Scratch then?
It's a graphical programming tool.
Just sort of a drag and drop blocks onto a page to make a sort of flow. And
Okay.
It's a cat instead of a turtle or something, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like logo. Advanced
okay,
logo.
that's all
right.
So you can drag the parts of a program. So you drag in the start, you could drag in a loop, you can drag in variables, and you can tell actors on the screen to move based on inputs and stuff. But it's all
right.
You don't actually write a single line of code. It's dragging lumps of program from the side into it, and it's nice colors and stuff. And I was chatting to Alan Lord on IRC earlier, and he said he gave a half an hour introduction to Scratch to his kids. I think his son's 11, and he said went away, and when he came back, they'd basically written Pac-Man in Scratch. And that's
pretty good.
That's not an easy thing to do. Do the kind of and to follow
That's
the
good.
logic and variables and conditionals and all that kind of stuff. It's
Still do that on a PC though.
yeah, you can.
But when you're
less
looking-
distractions
yeah,
on a
when you're-
Raspberry Pi.
when you're looking at a
Can't run
PC,
iPhone.
or it's not like it's put in front of you and you've got Facebook and you've got the internet and stuff. When you've got a Raspberry
You just
Pi,
unplug it.
you've got no. This is my point. You can just unplug it, but you've got all the rest of the stuff there, which is sort of your mind it might not occur to you. Oh, I've got this programming environment there set up ready to go. You're thinking I've got the internet, which is probably why you bought the machine in the first place.
I understand that, but that's your perspective of someone's perspective. The point is, this is about introducing computing to kids who don't necessarily have those preconceptions. They've got iPhones or whatever, but you give them a PC and you put the only thing on that screen as a development environment, or plug something in that flashes lights. I'm not knocking Raspberry Pi in itself. It's just the buzz around it doesn't do anything different from anything else. And we could be teaching programming on kit that we've already got.
It does, in that it provides a very, very low cost computing device.
That's what I was about to say.
But
and
places have already got computers. You can have a really
but
poor spec
not necessarily.
computer.
Yeah, but they might not have a computer which they can afford to be bricked that can then be
thrown away by another
well
one.
either thrown away by another one, or the other thing is that because with the Raspberry Pi, the thing that I found when I was playing with it was if you decide that you want to try something else, or you've messed up the system because you were playing around too much. Whereas my Guru plug, which is the sort of similar little system on chip box I've had before, with that it was a real headache if I ever broke anything, having to connect a serial console over a modem emulator and flash devices. Whereas with the Raspberry Pi, you just whip out an SD card, stick it in another computer, say, oh, that image instead, and stick it back in, and you're ready to go again. And that sort of, it gives you the freedom to mess around without risking, bricking the family PC or something, which I've also done in the past.
Right, okay. So it gives you a bit of redundancy, and it's fairly cheap and cheerful, and it's not the end of the world if you break it. And we are starting to see some educational use come through with it. They've been around for, I guess, how long? A month, 2 months? Since they've actually been in people's hands?
Yeah, I've had mine about a month now.
So it's still pretty early days.
And this is the kind of developer prototypey one. The idea is that the next generation one, yes, will have a case. and would be more suited and more ruggedized for being in an educational environment. But yeah, I similar to Mark, when I was at school, you got the BBC that had a programming language, and that's all you had. If you didn't have a disk drive, the only thing you had was a programming language. So anything you wanted, you had to create yourself, or like you say, type in from a magazine. But
they were really expensive. See, this doesn't compare.
Exactly,
because they're not.
That's why this is
really
better,
expensive.
because these are super cheap. So it's very easy for you to kit a room of these things out for very, very low cost and, photocopy a bunch of notes and have a couple of hours teaching, the basics, even not necessarily going into the depths of programming, but even, put something like Inkscape on there and, even something simple like that. It doesn't have to be programming. It can be something a lot less, nerdy than that. And
there's a Stack Exchange site generating a bit of community around what's going on with the Raspberry Pi, I think.
Yeah, so there's a official website, raspberrypi.org, and they have forums on there. But some other people went to Stack Exchange and said, could we have a Raspberry Pi site? And the way Stack Exchange works is you have to get a certain number of people sign up to say, yeah, I'll contribute if you make one, and then Stack Exchange enable it in beta mode for a week, and only those people who signed up can get in.
Right.
And they start pre-populating it with interesting questions and answers, and they build up a little community, and then after a week it gets opened up to the public, and then anyone can use it for that kind of stuff. And I've been watching that for the last week. It opens later today, depending on your time zone, or tomorrow.
Or yesterday.
But it's been open for a week, and they're getting like 20 questions a day, of which 90% of them are being answered. And they're getting a couple of hundred visits a day. So, and bear in mind that even the people on the Stack Exchange site a lot of them don't even have Raspberry Pis yet. So there's already a community of people who are so keen to get involved in this that they don't even have the device, and they're willing to support other people who may have it.
Are there people who are asking the questions who don't have a device either?
Yes.
Therefore, people are asking hypothetical questions, getting answers from people who don't have the device either.
Yes.
Well, presumably from a software side, that's not a problem, is it?
Well, a lot of the questions are, generic Linuxy questions, and how do I change my password? And they're trying to find their feet and figure out, do we actually want to be a Linux support site or not? And they're trying to push those, because there are other Stack Exchange and other support sites like Ask Ubuntu and that kind of stuff. So they're trying to find their feet. But it's nice to see that there is a community building around this. Whether it will go anywhere, whether it's worthwhile doing, I don't know. But I'm glad to see that there are actually people who are supporting this thing.
I guess it could go the other way, and they suddenly have to become electronics experts.
Yay!
It's fair to say that there's a lot of buzz around the Raspberry Pi, as anybody who's tried to buy one has found out.
Or three.
Sold out. Unless you're Alan and has three. Which leads us rather excitingly, having convinced you of the exciting nature of this product. Thanks, Laura. Convinced you of the exciting
Balanced
nature of this
podcast
product.
discussion.
That's not in our remit.
We have very generously got one to give away. One of Alan's three.
Yes. Still in its box. It's not, I haven't opened it, so I assume it's in there. It's still in the box from RS. Yes, so I thought I'd get one to give away on the podcast.
Okay, so we're going to do that. So in order to give it away, we have to set a question. Mark, have you got a question that you want us to...
I might have a question. Okay, yes. I think I've just come up with one off the top of my head.
Okay, go
off
for it.
Off the top of the Word document in front of you.
Okay, the question is, what would you do with it?
Are we talking about the Raspberry Pi, presumably?
Not the cardboard box it comes in.
No.
Right, okay.
Give that to your cat.
Okay, so you can send your answers to competition@ubuntu-uk.org. That's competition@ubuntu-uk.org. And the closing date for the competition will be the 16th of July. So that's 2 episodes worth of time to get your answers in and get back to us.
And we'll select the winner based on what we think is the most fun, interesting, and amusing. And
yes, total random choice.
Yes, and then we'll email you and ask for your address.
Yes, and then Alan will post it out to you.
Yes,
promptly.
Yeah.
And without undue delay.
And now it's time for the news.
Hooray!
And father of Linux, Linus Torvalds, has been named joint winner of the Millennium Technology Prize by the Technology Academy Finland. He shares the €1.2 million prize with Dr. Shinya Yamanaka, a stem cell scientist.
Cool. Was this the thing where he did a speech?
No.
A Q&A?
No.
No, right. Okay.
No.
Gloss over that one.
Yes.
YouTube it. Yes.
Skype for Linux version 4 has been released, the first major release since the software was purchased by Microsoft. The updates bring in some new features, including better handling of contacts as well as stability improvements.
How can you better handle contacts?
I don't know.
It's something to do with you can now put real phone numbers in the Skype contacts book or something. I don't know, it's a bit prettier. That's all I noticed.
Something I've noticed with Skype is they've added a dog in the corner. You know, the logo.
Does it say, it looks like you're trying to make a phone call?
No, it's a giant Skype logo in the top right-hand corner.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure it's because a lot of TV news use Skype when talking to, like, a correspondent in Iraq or something like that. It's the only means possible.
Oh, on
and
video
so
call.
It gets their logo everywhere.
Interesting. Nokia has abandoned its Meltemi project, a Linux-based smartphone platform that made use of the Qt toolkit. I always get told off for that. Despite this, Nokia still confirmed it will continue to support Qt.
Who's Nokia again?
They're the people that Microsoft bought. Effectively.
So yes,
not a great surprise given that they have sold their soul to the Windows Mobile or whatever. It's the equivalent.
They've got one phone that has Windows Phone on it, don't they?
What, the Lumia 800 or something?
The one they...
Yeah, I'm sure they have more phones in the pipeline. They also still have loads of low-end phones. No, not Symbian, Series 40 phones. They're not Symbian. Series 40 is their other OS.
The dumb phones.
The old dumb phones that sell in vast numbers around the world.
Right.
They still do that.
Right.
But not Meltemi, the bit in the middle.
I see.
Right, okay.
Microsoft has added support for SUSE Linux Enterprise Server and Ubuntu to its Azure cloud platform in a big change from its previous Windows-only offering.
Now, this is interesting.
Yes.
Interesting in what way, Mark?
Well, interesting that Microsoft have decided... What?
Alan, yeah. In what way was that interesting?
Yeah, well, yeah, interesting that Microsoft decided that in order to be relevant in the cloud market, they can't just sell their own product. They have to sell someone else's product as well.
Yes.
Seems that way.
Yeah. Just interesting.
We could have said that a few minutes ago.
Lawyer Charles Carrion, known for his involvement in a case over disputed ownership of the sex.com domain name, has sued the Oatmeal webcomic along with the National Wildlife Federation and the American Cancer Society charities. The litigation follows an initial threat brought by Carrion on behalf of funnyjunk.com against the Oatmeal, which prompted the Oatmeal's author to launch a fundraising campaign for the charities instead of paying the requested damages.
It's the latest internet brouhaha, isn't it?
A man being silly on the internet. What are the chances?
Yes, I know. Thing is, Oatmeal's comics are, mildly offensive.
Yes.
Generally quite amusing.
He did draw a picture of this guy's mum
and
in flagrante with a bear.
Yes. Is that worth suing over and suing charities that he's raised?
That's the thing. The fact that he's actually decided...
For.
He's raised about $200,000 when the initial damages claim was for $20,000, and the guy is suing the charities.
Nice guy.
Yeah.
The Humble Indie Bundle 5 has ended, raising $5.1 million to be shared between the game developers and charities and the people who organise the Humble Bundle.
Yes. Wow.
598,000 sales. Well, nearly 600,000 sales.
Yeah, that's very impressive. How many of those with Linux?
A significant proportion. No, I don't think so. Because the pie chart on the website shows Windows being a significant proportion of the sales and Mac and Linux being roughly equal.
Okay.
Like 20% each or something like that, 20-25% each.
Yes. Yeah, I'm just looking at the pie chart now. Linux is slightly behind the Mac, but not by much.
Yeah,
so,
you would expect it to be Macs at like 5%, Linux a tiny slither at 1%, but it seems that Linux and Mac people actively go and support this thing and buy it.
And they pay more than the Windows people,
yes,
according to
as
stats.
Always.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, and that's the end of the news.
And we also have some events.
Tell us about the events, Mark.
Of course, we have OggCamp.
Hooray!
When's that then, Mark?
That is the 18th and 19th of August at the Liverpool John Moore University in Liverpool.
Yes, correct.
And after I mentioned the speakers previously, I've got all their details on the website now. So if you want to see who's going to be on our scheduled track, then you can see that on the website, ogcamp.org.
I just realised what was confusing me about the competition earlier, which is that I read out the wrong month. I said August.
Well, I'm glad somebody noticed.
So when does the competition close?
July. That was the point. That was why I was confused, because I was thinking that's the OggCamp weekend, and it's not quite.
17th of July.
Yeah. Let's go with this. So it's 16th of July will be the last date, and we'll announce the winner on the show on the 17th.
Put it on the show notes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're going to edit that in, are you?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's live. Sorry, Mark. Carry on.
So anyway, I was just about to thank our kind sponsors.
Yes.
Because-
yes, do.
Who are they?
Because, people don't have to pay to come to OggCamp, and some very nice people give us money so that we can do it. So first of all, I would like to thank Liverpool John Moore University for giving us the venue, which is extremely generous of them. They are hosting us for the weekend. And Bytemark, who are giving us some money to fund various shenanigans.
Yeah, good old Bytemark.
And
There's more about that later.
yeah. Oh, yes. We're mentioning that again later.
Ooh. Excellent. Okay, is that all the OggCamp stuff?
Just keep an eye on the website for news and updates.
Excellent. I wrote a blog post last week. I'm thinking of doing some sort of photography thing. If you're interested in photography and going to OggCamp and want to do something, check my blog, tonywhitmore.co.uk, or ping me an email and we'll see what we can do.
Even better if you're getting married.
If you're getting married at OggCamp, yeah.
Also, if he has any links to electronic items for purchase on Amazon.
Right, free workshops for the Open Rights Group are being held to teach people about the Snoopers Charter, the Communications Data Bill here in the UK, and internet censorship, and some practical training on how to speak to your MP. You don't need any previous knowledge of the issues or experience talking to an MP to go along. You can just turn up. Well, probably have to book.
I think you have to book.
There's an Eventbrite link for various locations: London, Edinburgh, Manchester, Sheffield, Birmingham and Bristol over the end of June and the beginning of July.
First one's tomorrow.
Yes, so, get along to
probably
that
missed
quick.
it.
You probably have missed it by the time you listen to this. But yeah, so if you're interested in going along to those events to find out more about the new bill and its implications and what you can do about it, check that out.
Hello, and welcome to Tomorrow's Technology Today. I'm Douglas Austin Cambridge. A good day to all our listeners, wherever you are around the British Empire. It's good day to my delightful co-host, Miss Deirdre Morris-Oxford.
Good day, Douglas. With what are we going to begin today?
I don't know. The producer hasn't given me an invention to talk about.
How about the portable radio in a straw boater made by an American inventor?
It's old hat, Deirdre.
The hostess trolley pianos, especially designed for people who are confined to bed?
How would you work the pedals?
How about a miniature record player that fits in your pocket?
Won't one's body movements scratch the needle on the record? No, the needle on the record. No, the needle on the record.
There won't be a needle or a record. One's own body movement could be used to charge a tiny electrical generator to power the device. The whole thing will be so robust, you'll be able to listen to music whilst playing sports.
Even rugger, Deirdre. It sounds a little uncomfortable to me. One big tackle and you'd land on your Jolsons. It could be very painful.
I don't believe Big Tackle to be one of your problems, Douglas.
Look, that was just a nickname I had at school.
Anyway, the music would be stored as electronic pulses on a sort of wafer.
A wafer? Surely you're not proposing we play music using ice cream, Deirdre? I believe you're off to Fantasyland. It would melt in your hand.
Not ice cream, Douglas. A silicate glass wafer sandwiching electronic circuits composed of gallium arsenide, among other elements.
An ice cream sandwich, Deirdre. Now that really is silly stuff.
The fascinating thing about gallium arsenide, Douglas, is that it has a melting point below that of the human body. So if you hold it in your hand, it would actually melt.
Really? Where do you get this stuff, Deirdre?
It's called education, Douglas. Remind me. Where did you get your degree?
It seems that old Father Time has beaten us again. That's all from tomorrow's Technology Today. Toodle pip and God save the King.
We've got Jason DeRose on the line now. Hi, Jason. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, not bad. Nice and warm. There's probably nobody listening, so don't worry. Everyone's watching the football, so it doesn't really matter what we say for the next 15 minutes. But
thanks for coming on the show.
So you can say anything. So, Jason, I know you through seeing you at various UDSs and other events, taking photos and videos. So tell me how you got involved in Ubuntu at the start.
Well, when we started out on this Novacut adventure, as I call it, what was going on with Ubuntu was a big part of kind of the strategy and what I saw as the market opportunity. So as soon as we could, we went to UDS, and we're actually really interested in helping kind of tell the story of Ubuntu, and especially bringing the people behind it out, because I think that's a really important part of making it interesting to the mass market. And then we also thought, hey, if we're walking around with giant cameras all the time, like, it's kind of hard to not notice this, and it forces us to interact with people. We can't be shy, and so it was a good way to do a bunch of networking quickly.
So you say the kind of Novacut story. I guess most people know you through the. You started off with a Kickstarter campaign which raised the profile of Novacut, and also your development of D-Media and things like that. Tell us where you're up to now. What stage you're at with the Novacut project? So D-Media, I'm always scared about calling it production ready because I have nightmares about losing people's data. Although, we've actually, been using it for a while at UDS and Lunar Connect. But so it's getting very near to kind of the point where I have the confidence in it to really say, like, okay, if you're a DIT working on a Hollywood production, this is okay to use. And then as far as the editor, you can cut video with it. There's no audio functionality yet, but you can cut, you can render, and I think we have a pretty novel workflow that's been well received so far. And then sorry, go ahead. Sorry, I was just so D-Media is the bit that does in a nutshell. D-Media is the bit that gets the content off the storage devices and manages where it goes on your computer, and then Novacut's the bit where you do the actual work.
Right, and D-Media also manages moving these files between computers. So one of the problems it's addressing is, these days most people have, say, a laptop they'll use in the field and then a workstation at home. And, the goal of D-Media is to just make file management go away totally. Because D-Media is actually something I dabbled on a little bit before Novacut days, because my wife's a photographer and my brother does a lot of time-lapse. And it's like watching, the nightmare that they have dealing with files got me thinking, like, I would like to make this better for them.
Yeah, I'm not a pro photographer, and I can't manage the files that I have, so I have no idea what kind of a nightmare it is for a photographer who has like a bazillion photos they take on a shoot. It's how do you get over that stumbling block that where your files are, they're on this card, and then from there to managing your content on a device.
So D-Media IDs all the files by content hash, which means at a low level, like it's not something you want to deal with at all. But it's the only way to deal with the more interesting problem, or what I thought was more interesting problem in terms of like moving files between systems. And so once they're off the card, D-Media basically tracks each hard drive a file stored on. So, and this is all in the metadata in CouchDB. So if you have a file, it can say, okay, it's on, these 3 hard drives should contain this file. And, it do things like periodically do a quick check just to make sure all those files are actually there, that the modification time is what you expect, to make sure nothing funky went on. And then also can do, full content hash verification to make sure it's the exact bits.
But this is all transparent to the user as far as the user is concerned. My files have appeared here and they've appeared there, and I can access them anywhere.
Right. And the idea is that on a given system, it'll load them on demand based on what you're using. Because one of the problems with photography and with video especially is you quickly get to a point where the set of files you're working with is much larger than is going to fit on any device, any single computer you have. So you're constantly kind of swapping out your working set.
And is this something that is solved on other platforms? I guess a lot of photographers use Macs. So is this something that OS X or Pro Photo tools on OS X have fixed themselves?
I'm not sure on the kind of photography-focused side. The closest thing we know about in terms of on the video side is called Silver Stack Set, and it runs on OS X. And it takes care of a lot of the problems, but one thing it doesn't do is move files between computers. And I think that's one of the most critical use cases to fix in terms of really helping professionals waste less time, be less stressed.
And so is your goal to try and provide something that's attractive to try and pull those people in who are, typically Mac users?
Absolutely. And I think that, we're constantly talking to people about this, and DIT, as we talk to, which by the way stands for Digital Image Technician, and they're basically this horrible job where you have to be kind of a file management monkey is a lot of it. But they're super excited about what we're doing, and I think Ubuntu's in a great position to have a great solution there because a huge part of it is just a data problem, and so having an OS that has its roots in the server, and so you have a modern super fast file system, for example, right. A huge advantage. So yeah, I think it's especially for DMedia and NovaCut, hopefully not too long after, but this is a very attractive solution to people in the industry.
So in terms of being attractive, then have you got pro UX designers designing the NovaCut interface and workflow to ensure that it's something that's not janky and clunky and ones and zeros that most Linux applications tend to be until a designer's looked at it?
So we all work a lot on the design, and our biggest thing was research. We've taken a lot of inspiration from how the Ubuntu design team does things. So the very first thing we did, we did almost a year of research before we started on the NovaCut UI. Just trying to wrap our heads around kind of the key problems, and then as we're making steps in that direction, we try to not go too far before we really, really get a lot of feedback and have people use it, and so it's just these little baby steps, and with pro users especially, they're typically they're fairly technical to extremely technical, and they're very articulate about what they want and what the problem is, and so really what we do is just go ask them, okay, what do you need, and then we make our best attempt at making that and check it with them and then tune it, and so it's I think one lesson I want to pass on to everyone is that really designing pro applications is probably the easiest thing you can do, because the users can tell you what they want so clearly, whereas with consumer applications, like I have a lot harder time understanding what the problem is. It's like maybe you want to procrastinate on your homework is the problem, the user experience problem that would make it best for you, So
is that where you see the differentiator between NovaCut and the other video editing programs that are currently around on Linux and Ubuntu already. So things like KDN Live or PiTiVi or OpenShot or whatever. You're firmly going for the pro end of the market where they're not?
I'm reluctant to comment on what their intentions are because it's got me in trouble before.
Right.
No, really?
I mean, I guess one thing that, maybe is a little different is that for me personally, actually the last thing I want is a video editor.
Right.
I want more Firefly, not a video editor. And so it just really wasn't a scratch your own itch project. And I think when you're kind of in that mindset, in some ways it's easier to stay tuned to a really narrow set of users' needs. So I think maybe one place where we've been a bit different than some of them is I know in general people want to be able to do pro stuff, but we say no to anything that's consumer because you just can't dilute the workflow.
So perhaps we could turn that around then and say, why start a video editor from scratch when there are other options on Linux?
The biggest reason was Novacut can do real-time collaborative editing, which is something, as far as I know, still no one else can do. And in my mind, that was like the scariest problem. And CouchDB, which I learned about from Desktop Couch, as I learned more about it, I realized this is almost a drop-in solution to the hardest part of this problem. And I don't want to have to spend a lot of time on that problem. And then the other thing is I think traditional toolkits make it hard to have the flexibility you need to really innovate in the UI, and it's too slow to iterate. So using WebKit, it's proven to be a very good choice for us. And so a lot of it was a kind of a technology and architecture change that just didn't really make any of the existing editors. It'd be more work to try to modify them into what we needed.
Right. So when you talk about the traditional toolkits, if I picture any video editor on pretty much any platform, there's a preview window in the top right, there's a timeline along the bottom, there's clips in the top left, and there's buttons everywhere. Is how I would sum up every single video editor I've ever seen before. All the videos that I've seen of you demonstrating what Novacut can do and what it will do all seem to be a blank screen with a bunch of clips on, focusing attention on the clips and not on the UI. Do you see that you're going to have to at some point put some buttons on that screen, or in my simplistic mind, or are you trying to keep it as lean as possible and not have to go down that road?
We're definitely trying to keep it very lean, and I guess one thing that especially in professional editing, it's a series of really discrete steps, and you kind of do one for a while and then switch to another, and there's not a whole lot of back and forth. So it seems like a lot of existing video editors, they kind of try to present everything you can possibly do all at once. And we're taking the approach of we kind of have separate screens for these different tasks, and we just show what's needed for that task, which is easy to do with WebKit because the different screens are actually different HTML pages.
Right. And are there any challenges that you've uncovered in trying to implement this kind of application as in WebKit?
There's a lot of plumbing and kind of learning we had to do because it is, a very weird way to build applications. And, at this point we're not using Desktop Couch anymore, but, we've had the same problems. Like CouchDB is actually kind of a pain to use in a desktop app like this. Like starting it is a pain, and so there's been a lot of issues there. And yeah, but it's actually, when I fire up a couple instances and do the collaborative stuff, I'm always slightly surprised that it works. Sometimes I'll work for a while without playing with the collaborative parts, and then I'll test my new stuff and oh yeah, that actually just works.
And this is an assumption that some people might make. The fact that you're using WebKit, does that mean that it would be an in the cloud editor and you could actually do it, using a Chrome OS laptop?
So it's a native application, but the idea is that it's like the server backend is a actual separate process for like rendering and that kind of stuff.
Right.
So we want to be able to run that in the cloud or on a local cluster or, but for professional use, depending on the cloud all the time just isn't feasible because, you don't want to have to upload like 200 gigs of footage just to start doing anything with it.
Well, it's got to go somewhere, isn't it? I mean, if you're talking about collaborative editing between multiple parties, everyone's got to get a copy at some point, haven't they?
Right, but so one thing we can do to like speed up the process of getting the footage to your peers is we transcode a smaller proxy and upload that. And then the other thing we can do is often when people are say on a set, everyone just goes home with a hard drive with a copy of all the footage, and then D-Media can hook everything up afterward.
Right. Okay. So SneakerNet working around the problem.
Right.
So you started off, as I understand it, yourself and your wife on the project. Have you had much in the way of collaboration from other members of the community, other people getting involved?
Yeah. So James Raymond and David Jordan, basically work on it full time now.
Oh, wow.
David Jordan's going to be going back to school soon, so that'll change. And also I have to always give a shout out to David Green, who did a lot of help with D-Media early on when it was, I think, very scary project to try to jump into. And he just jumped in and did some awesome stuff, so I have to thank him. And then, there's always people that are kind of passing in and out, and, it's a fairly challenging project to dig into, I think, in some ways. So, people have to have, it's also just an issue of, time.
So if there are people listening who want to get involved or want to see what tasks you have on your list of, this big roadmap to video editor nirvana, what should they do? Who should they get in contact with? Where should they go and look?
So the best thing to do, the first thing I would do is go on to the #Novica IRC channel on Freenode, and you can ping me, Jada Rose, or James Amars, James Raymond, DMJ762 is David Jordan, or just ping people there. It's a good place to get started. And
do you have a website with your task list, and you've got a lot of it on the wiki, haven't you?
Yeah, we have a kind of a section of the Ubuntu wiki where we have a bunch of stuff. But I need to probably do a better job of keeping the task list up to date.
Maybe someone could come and help you do that.
That would actually be fantastic. I would love that.
So if you're good at organising tasks, jump in #Novicut and speak to Jada Rose.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thanks very much for taking the time to talk to us, Jason. And we'll have to check in with you again very soon and see how you're moving on.
Yeah, we'll certainly be keeping an eye on it.
Yeah.
Of course. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks, Jason. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, I was all ready to go then. I forgot my microphone.
The look of confidence on your face has disappeared.
I leaned forward to speak into anyone
Sound of a
there.
microphone being dragged across the room.
Oh, it's all class. So, time for a bit about Ubuntu.
Excellent. What's the first thing?
So, Jono has announced an app developer contest in which developers can create new applications for Ubuntu and potentially win a laptop and a mobile phone.
Either of those things run Ubuntu?
The laptop does. It's a System 76. Nice laptop.
Yeah.
In fact, you've got one right there. I've
Yes.
just noticed.
This one is about 3.5 years old. So
Also from Jono.
yeah, he's got a job lot.
Did you write an app for Ubuntu?
No, I didn't. I made a documentary. It's massaging Jono's ego.
Well, they're both much the same.
Don'tlistenalone.org.
And the phone is a Nokia N9.
Yes, which is highly hackable. So attractive for people who want to play around with hackable devices.
Nice.
Cool. Okay. So it's just any app.
No, there's some limits on.
Okay.
But it's all detailed in the post that we'll link to in the show notes. And the contest started yesterday, and I think you've got 2 or 3 weeks to get your app in.
Cool.
Enter the contest. And
Excellent.
Yeah, good luck. I'm entering as well.
So is that why you're trying to be a bit cagey about the details?
I'm not being cagey at all.
You have
I
to
just don't
make
want to tell
something-
everyone what I'm going to do.
Okay. I thought you're trying to put
actually,
people
no,
off.
I'm not going to tell anyone what I'm going to do.
You tell me.
No.
You know I'm not going to write anything.
I'm not going to tell you through this microphone, which is streamed live.
He'll
on the
buy
internet.
some books to teach him how to write the thing.
Yeah, unless it can be written in a bash script, it's not going to happen.
Well, yes, okay. Stop trying to tease detail out of me, Whitmore. It's not going to
He's
work.
already got a laptop.
Yes.
Canonical kernel engineer Colin King has written up a comprehensive review of Intel SSDs on Ubuntu.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's worth a read, actually, if you're considering getting an SSD.
He does
I just got one.
benchmarking of different file systems and comparing them to his spinning hard drives and stuff like that.
I just got my first SSD in the week. As I mentioned earlier, I upgraded my PC to cope with HD video.
Oh, yes.
One of the things I did was get an SSD, and it took the Ubuntu boot time on the same. Everything else on the computer was the same, just moving the file system onto an SSD, which was the biggest pain ever, and took much longer than even just upgrading the whole motherboard.
Why? What did you do?
I tried. I rsynced
He can't remember.
the file system contents across, but that wasn't the problem. It was the bootloader. Trying to get the bootloader to go in the right place and then mount the right root file system and things. And yeah, it's Grub 2. Anyway, it was a pain. But it took 20 seconds to boot as opposed to 40 seconds after that. So
That's good, isn't it?
Quite a big improvement, yeah. All the other hardware being the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, so I'm a bit more convinced about SSDs now because I've been a bit sceptical about them.
My general feeling is, so long as you've got good backups, or you store your stuff in... Yeah, not for you, Mark.
There it is.
or you store your stuff
years
in the
ago
cloud.
was that now?
I don't see why they're more likely to fail than moving parts ones. I mean, I'd have thought moving parts ones would be more likely to fail.
Just statistically, they are.
Yeah, but they're a smaller sample.
How do you mean?
Well, there's fewer SSD drives around than there are hard drives.
Okay, yeah, but you're not buying all of them.
No. How many have you had fail?
What, SSDs? None.
How many hard drives have you had fail?
About 4.
There we go.
Over a period of...
I make my point.
10 years. Whereas SSDs I've only had for 6 months, a year, probably.
Right.
And I've had different manufacturers as well. I've got Intel, OCZ, and some other company.
So join us again in Series 15.
Podcasters of the future.
The SSD cast.
Yes. They're good. They're good. I like it. Yeah, I say, as long as you've got good backups and you store your stuff in the cloud, if the disk fails, so what? It's painful and you have to reinstall, but...
Discs die, don't they?
That's the case, though, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Excellent.
Canonical have announced more Dell stores opening in China and India. Hundreds of them.
I'll be right there.
Hundreds.
Will you?
Hundreds, yes.
No.
Yeah. Okay. Are these like big Apple style stores, or are these like the Dell kiosks that you see?
Well, I don't know what you mean by kiosk, but small shops.
Small sort of shops.
There's a
Shop
proliferation of these shops in China.
Yeah.
It's really insanely popular that, you when you say you're going to a store, it's often, something that's fairly small. It's not, like a giant warehouse style store that you get here, or Best Buy or something like that. They are generally quite small.
It's like the Apple in Southampton.
I don't know.
Well, the image that I have of something that's very narrow, almost like a booth.
I'd say they're bigger than. But on the blog post, they got a couple of photos.
Yes.
You can see they're somewhere in between
They
a
are.
booth and an Apple store, which is quite a wide spectrum of sizes.
These are two of the ones in India, with very nice Ubuntu banners outside, which I'm sure weren't put there just for the photograph to be taken.
No, I'm sure every single store has pop-up banners like
absolutely,
that. Absolutely, yeah.
Maybe
But they do actually have all the marketing stuff inside and all the little yellow, orange and purple stuff inside.
It does rather make it look like these banners have gone on holiday and visited a number of different stores.
They're not the same one we had at Software Freedom Day in Bracknell.
Probably.
Maybe. No, that's before the colour change. Yeah, I wonder if they're going to take loads of photos of those around the world.
In
They're going
front
to
of
get gradually more
in front
and
of
more
the Taj
tacky.
Mahal and other sites, at the top of the Empire State Building.
Yeah. I like the sound of that.
In Linux gaming news, developers of Unity 3D game engine have announced the plan for the next release, Unity 4, not to be confused with Ubuntu's Unity, which will include a preview of a new deployment option to publish games to desktop Linux, clearing a path for the Unity community. I think Jono just really exploded to bring exciting new content to the estimated 10% of the game-hungry PC market. Desktop Linux standalone publishing will be available for all Unity 4 users at no additional cost.
So that bit of fluff was taken straight from their website.
Right.
But the reason I did that is because it's interesting that they say estimated 10% of the game-hungry PC market,
Yeah.
Actually, yes.
which kind of made me a bit surprised. 10% of the PC gaming market run Linux.
Nerds?
Wonder whether... I don't know. Well, I suppose we were talking about the percentage of people who are buying the Humble Bundle.
It's not 1%.
No.
It's possibly
Yeah.
significantly higher than that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the potential for this is, all these games that are already out there that are written using this Unity 3D engine could potentially be much more easily ported to Linux, and new games in the future could run on Linux more easily.
Cool.
Which is good news.
It's proprietary, I guess.
It is proprietary, and you have to pay for it, and it's based on Mono. C#.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm sure that'll go down well.
Yeah, it's a triple whammy. But that's how they managed to get the because Mono is cross-platform. That's how they get it to be on iPhone, Android, PlayStation, Windows.
So
Linux,
Mono is freer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Laura.
That's all in the bit about Ubuntu. Now for
And
the
Not about Ubuntu. So OpenSUSE has hit a bump in the road regarding the stability of the project, leading to the upcoming 12.2 release being delayed.
Oh dear.
Yes.
How often are there releases?
I don't know, actually.
No idea.
I think they're sort of when they're ready. But they basically they had a date set for the release, but they've had some setbacks with things like they rely on the OpenSUSE build service to build all their packages, but that's been down. And and so that causes delays because they can't get the stuff built.
And then it has to catch up when it does come back.
And then people start to get lose enthusiasm and things like that. So they're sort of reviewing the way they do things by the sound of it to try and get things a bit better managed and a bit more stable.
I hope it is just a sort of technical and procedural problem rather than a lack of people.
Yeah, well, by the sound of it, the problem is as much as anything else that they've kept on getting more and more people wanting to contribute, but they've not reviewed their processes at any point to work out how they're going to deal with all these people, and thus their systems have started to not be able to cope with that.
It hasn't scaled in the same way that the Debian project has to cope with thousands of contributing developers.
So hopefully it's a good problem to have that they've got so many people they don't know what to do, rather than just like
the little old lady
like
in the shoe.
Like Mageia.
Rather than not having enough people to keep everything together.
Okay, well, that's good. Right, well, thank you for those bits about and nots about Ubuntu.
And now it's time for your feedback. Tim Dobson of Pokebook and ByteMart Hosting,
He'll never escape that.
who are sponsoring OggCamp 12 and several other open source events this summer, writes...
Back in 2008, we took a 16-person gaming rig to the Lug Radio Live conference running Team Fortress 2 on Steam in Wine. We're considering doing a similar kind of thing for the conferences this summer. Obviously, Linux gaming has advanced a lot since 2008, and while we could mess with Wine and Steam again, we prefer to support the native Linux gaming community. We have a good idea of a few Linux games that could work, but we're interested in knowing what would actually be enjoyable to play. So, UUPC listeners, let us know the most fun drop-in, drop-out multiplayer LAN-based Ubuntu games.
Ooh.
When he says us, he means us. let us know.
Does it mean let's the Ubuntu podcast?
Yes,
people know,
podcast at ubuntu-uk.org, and we'll feed this back to Tim.
Cool.
We'll read it out.
Both.
Yes.
Yes.
I'll set a forward rule.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So if you want to see particular games, let us know. Yeah.
Yeah, I've already suggested Minecraft, but I'm sure there are other games that fit those requirements that he's outlined there.
Excellent.
Imran Chowdhury emailed us his web project.
Just wanted to drop a note to say how much I'm enjoying the podcast these days. Thank you. We've become the new Lug Radio. By that I mean I'm loving the banter and jokes. Keep it up, guys.
Which one's Zach?
I don't normally include those bits, but I just thought it was nice.
Yeah. Also, I recently decided to brush up on my web development skill and whipped up a small web application, and includes a link. You sign up for an account and it automatically emails you whenever a new episode comes out. Of the podcast, this is. Halfway through, I realised your episodes don't come out randomly, but roughly every 2 weeks.
Bless.
But I pressed on because it was just fun.
We even have a calendar that you could use too.
The funny part of that was that he sent us a list of all the days. It's like, yeah, but we know that. So I did sign up for this. However, I can't test it until we've released an episode.
Until you release it.
Yeah, until I release an episode. But
so
yes.
Presumably he's looking at the RSS feed and generating an email notification.
Well, we'll soon find out, won't we?
Yeah.
So you hit the button and then watch your email.
Yeah. So yeah, I was just interested in if there are any little mini projects that people could easily get the idea about that they want to let us know about. Just for fun, really.
Yeah, we'll put a link in the show notes.
Yeah.
Paul Stimpson emailed us about the Raspberry Pi.
I'm finding not all phone chargers are equal when it comes to powering my Pi. Even though they all have the right current, I find it's crashy and the USB is unreliable with my older and cheaper chargers and much more reliable with more expensive chargers, like the one that came with my Samsung. It seems that the more expensive the phone, the better quality the charger that comes in the box. Looks like the brand names win this one.
That's actually, something I forgot to mention in the Raspberry Pi segment. The power source is a micro USB, which is what all mobile phones now pretty much use. But it also means that you can power it off, in theory, any USB socket. So if you've got a USB socket in the back of your TV,
right,
then you can just have it plugged into the TV without you having to have a separate plug in the wall for the Raspberry Pi. And the Wii has USB ports in the back, which you could use. I did actually try. I've got a AA battery charger, which, as well as charging the batteries, also for some reason has a USB female port in.
Right.
So I tried plugging a cable into there and it would boot the Raspberry Pi, but it sounds like it's the same problem with these cheap chargers, that
not enough current.
It would get to where it needs to ramp up the current to go into the full boot process, and then it would just reboot.
It's interesting. The BeagleBone, which has a similar port on it, that will run at 500 megahertz if it's plugged into a USB port. But if you plug a proper power supply in the power socket, it'll run at 700 megahertz.
And that's interesting because when I was trying it out, I was using the XBMC image, which does intentionally overclock the processor. So it might be that's why it was failing. Perhaps if I'd used the stock image, then it wouldn't have done it.
Right.
Friend of the show, Roger Light, emailed us with this news.
Nottingham Hackspace is holding a Raspberry Jam on the evening of Wednesday, the 3rd of July.
Yummy.
I like that.
This is a free evening for anybody who has a Raspberry Pi and wants to meet other enthusiastic owners and discuss ideas and projects. There are details on the Notting Hack website at www.nottinghack.org.uk.
You're clearly not a Raspberry Pi owner, because all the cool kids say they have a Pi, not a Raspberry Pi.
I just wanted to make it clear because he hadn't mentioned it in the... They might be confused what a Raspberry Jam was.
It's actually a lot of people around the country, I guess around the globe, are creating these Raspberry Jams. They seem to be the same name that they're using all over the place. It's local community events to build up a community around a small computer.
It is a good name.
Excellent. And that's all of your feedback.
That's all for this episode. Thank you for listening. You can find out how to get in touch with us on the website, podcast.ubuntu-uk.org, including voicemail numbers that nobody ever uses, and Twitter feeds, Facebook and IRC channels. Let us know, why does it say channels? There's only one channel. Let us know what you think of the show, or give us your thoughts about Ubuntu and the community around it. Join us on Tuesday the 3rd of July for our next live episode, which is going to be interesting.
Yes.
It's going to be a special one. We're letting Alan take over the buttons.
The Alan and Mark show.
Yeah. Yes.
So,
Shall we phone in?
Drop us any emails or let us know via Twitter or whatever if you think what you think me and Mark should do, because we haven't got a clue what we're going to do. If you've got any news or feedback, make it really long. Send us
anything which you wouldn't want Tony and Laura to hear.
Yes, because they won't be listening at all.
We will be listening.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Why do you think we
now.
were trying to set up 3G sharing?
Really? You're going to listen in? Oh, no. Oh, dear.
Yeah.
It's going to go horribly wrong.
And
So it's going to be in
notes.
Studio... Which one is it?
Q.
I can't remember now.
Studio A. This is B, isn't it?
I think so, yeah, because
Yeah.
we started it.
It's going to be in the studio that the first ever episode was recorded.
Yeah, in the
Yeah.
room with the very,
very
first
same
episode.
room.
On the same
Historic.
chairs. Yeah.
Yes. With one of the same
ghost,
people.
Yeah, the ghost of Davy and Simon.
Rumours of their demise has been overstated. So they are still with us, both.
But England did win,
Oh, England won the football, did they?
apparently.
Okay.
Spoilers.
Let's go and watch the highlights. Bye-bye.